This is a little review that I'm going to do regarding my Specialized FRS Stumpjumper 6 Fattie. This is a 2017 version. I had a couple of previous bikes that I had ridden extensively before I purchased this. My first bike was Trek Remedy, all mountain bike, 150 suspension front and rear. Pretty sweet bike, but the bike never really fit me correctly. I started out with a large frame and ended up swapping out the frame for an extra large frame to get more room for me to ride, and it still just wasn't balanced and still just wasn't quite right for my physique. So the next bike that I bought was a Pivot Mach 429, and I rode that quite a bit. I put about 2,500 miles off-road only on that bike, and that was a pretty amazing bike, handled a lot like a Ferrari. It was a pretty neat bike. It did have some drawbacks, so I wasn't a big fan of that pivot style suspension. Small bumps and ledges would just slow you down and you could just feel it. It wasn't a great suspension style bike. It only had, I think, 120 in the front and 100 in the rear. After riding that bike, I just got tired of it and wanted a change. So I went out and looked at a few different bikes. I looked at the Ibis Mojo 3, rode that, went over a couple of speed bump jumps and so forth in the parking lot and rode around a little bit, and the bike again didn't fit me all that great. The other bike that I rode was the Trek Fuel 8 all carbon. Again, that bike just seems small in the large. Even though I'm only 6 foot tall, it just still fit me like my Remedy, and it wasn't right for me. So the next bike I tried was the Yeti SB5 Fattie, or Plus, whatever they call it. And that is a beautiful bike in my opinion, but again, still didn't fit me awesome. So the next bike that I rode after that was the Pivot Switchblade, which, wow, that bike was pretty sweet, but since it had the same style suspension in the rear as my other bike, and it was a pretty expensive bike, I think it was closer to $7,000 range, I just couldn't spend that kind of money and end up hating it, and I couldn't test ride it thoroughly, so I just shied away from that. So the bike of my choice that I've been reading about and wondering about was this FRS 6 Fattie by Stumpjumper. And after looking at all the different components and the different things, this bike really had quite a bit. You know, that has that RockShox pike in the front, 36 millimeter stanchion tubes. It has RockShox in the rear. It's upgraded. It has the guide brakes, which are 4-piston brakes. I mean, the bike is super heavy duty, and the main kind of riding that I do here in Scottsdale, Arizona, United States, is trail riding. So this bike, after riding it quite a bit now, actually not that much, I got 75 miles on it, all off-road, all different kind of trails I tried it on, and the bike is equally as fast as the Pivot in everything. In fact, it's faster on the downhill and faster on the climbs. The Pivot on a flat surface, just because the gear ratio is different, would probably win in a long, straight, flat, smooth trail scenario, but we don't have those in Arizona. So this is just superior. So as you can see in the bike, you might have some questions about it, and I'll tell you some of the modifications I did is the front and rear fender. That rear fender is just simply the same one that goes on the front, and I just tie wrapped it to the back. Kind of looks cool. I'm not sure if it's functional or not, but we'll see. We'll just leave it on there. That little box you see just above the crank arms on the bottom tube of the frame is where the water bottle normally went for the SWAT box storage. Well, this is a SWAT box storage compartment made by Specialized. I believe it's for the Epic bike. And it opens up and you can put, I keep granola bars and just kind of easy access things, car keys, whatever inside there, without having to take my backpack off each time I want to eat something. I can just stop, open that up real quick and grab it. It's still it mounts to the plate that does the SWAT box storage down tube area there, and it works perfectly. Everything still opens up and works functionally. So pretty cool bike. It's the large model. It fits me perfectly. Very balanced bike. I run 18 pounds in the rear, 17 in the front. Seems to be perfect. I didn't really have to make any adjustments on the bike. The seat height, the seat forward and back, the handlebars, nothing. It just right out of the box was pretty nice. This bike has the 36 stanchions up front, the 203 brake in the front, the 180 in the rear. If you can see where the pedals are, there's a little red protector for the crank arms when you're pedaling and hitting rocks. I put that on there. I'm trying to think. I think that's about all I did to modify this bike, but pretty cool. I enjoy it. I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to do some hardcore trail rides. Bike is very nimble, handles nice. It actually jumps really, really well. Like I said, it climbs well. It descends outstanding. It has loads of traction, and it doesn't beat you up at the end of the day because the suspension and the tires are so supple. It's just fantastic. Hope you enjoy this video. Hope it helps you in deciding what kind of bike you're going to buy. I love this bike.